All right. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Mindgasms. I'm going to read another one of my novel chapters here. For those of you who don't know, I have a novel that I'm working on the final edit of right now called The Cold Darkness of the Night. And it's about a guy who was an enforcer for the mob, and he gets out at world once his wife gets pregnant with their daughter, and he gets pulled back into it once their daughter gets kidnapped. All right, so here is chapter 14 of The Cold Darkness of the Night. In the enveloping darkness, Brian and Bill contemplated their situation. Their breathing was heavy because they inhaled through constricting fabric. It was very humid in the shipping container, and it smelled strongly of mildew. The hitmen feebly struggled against their bonds, but as they had suspected, the ropes and handcuffs were so securely fastened that they could barely move them. After what seemed like an eternity, the heavy metal doors screeched open. This illuminated the all-encompassing darkness of the room. Bill and Brian's highly trained ears heard two sets of footsteps. One headed toward the light switch and flicked it on, granting a distorted view of the bare wall and floor. The other steps moved to Brian and Bill and removed the bags from their heads. A man stood in front of them with his arms crossed in front of his chest. He was clean-shaven with short, dark brown hair and had an apologetic expression on his face. "This is a test," said the other man, who removed their hoods. He had a thin mustache that he couldn't have pulled off if he wasn't black. The criminal wore a tight black t-shirt that accentuated his athletic physique and tan cargo pants tucked into black combat boots. Tattoos covered his arms. "What kind of a test?" Brian asked with irritation, controlling his anger. "And why are we being tested?" Bill added in a similar tone. "Those are very good questions," said the man in charge. He grabbed a chair from against the wall and sat on it before answering. "We wanted to gauge your reactions to stress. One of the goals was to see how you assess who you're dealing with and act accordingly. We also wanted to test your mettle," he continued. "So we captured you and brought you where you would assume you were about to be tortured. Part of the plan was to torture you to get you to prove your loyalty. But this guy convinced my boss that that would be excessive." He motioned to the man standing behind him. "So you can thank him for that." Outraged expressions formed on Brian and Bill's faces. It looked like volcanoes were about to spew vaporizing fire and magma from their mouths. "The reason you were tested is that this guy's daughter got kidnapped." He gestured behind himself again. "He's Marcel's nephew, so he asked him for help. The boss agreed to help him because he's family. This is Michael." "Hi, guys," the man behind him interjected with an apologetic look. Awkwardness leaked into his expression, like a teenage boy asking a girl out on a date. "I'm really sorry about all this. It wasn't my idea." "Anyway," the man in charge spoke, not giving Michael a chance to say anything else, "Marcel wanted to put his best guys on this, and you're it." "How the fuck do we know you're telling the truth?" retorted Bill, his voice dripping with skepticism and indignation. "And why didn't Marcel just ask us to help this guy?" Brian added. We would have done so without all the theatrics." The interviewer flicked his nose with his index finger absentmindedly. "I think you know from past experiences that the boss has a flair for the dramatic, especially when it comes to testing someone's loyalty and skill in intense situations. It makes him feel more comfortable and trusting with his employees, even ones who haven't let him down in a long time like you guys." "What do you think, Brian?" Bill questioned, swiveling to look at him. "I think that what this guy is saying makes sense," Brian replied, "but I also don't completely trust this motherfucker." "Hey, mister, I didn't catch your name. What is it?" Brian asked reproachfully. "My name is Fuck You. Don't call me a motherfucker, nigga." The enraged criminal's tone was hostile as he violently extended his arm toward the hitman, flipping him off. "Holy shit, nigga, calm down," Brian exclaimed, his voice raised a few levels in response to the livid attitude. "Just let me ask you a question." "Fine, but don't cuss at me And talk about me like I'm not here, okay? He responded more calmly, pointing an accusatory finger at Brian. All right, it's all good. The huge killer agreed in his cool, authoritative tone. You said we could call Marcel to confirm what you're telling us. Can I do that now? Sure, I'll undo your bonds and you can use my phone, as long as you don't try anything stupid, the man answered. If you try anything, I'm gonna shoot you in the fucking cap. We clear, nigga? He tapped his holstered black Beretta 9mm on his right hip for emphasis. Yeah, man, fucking crystal, Brian responded matter-of-factly, visibly irritated by the threats. He frowned, looking at his opponent the way a lion analyzes its prey right before it rips out its throat. Oh, you know this applies to you, the armed man said with authority, pointing at Bill and ignoring Brian's mannerisms. I understand, Bill stated patiently. I'm glad to hear that, the man declared. He stood up, unlocked and removed Brian and Bill's handcuffs, and cut their bonds with an enormous black pocket knife. The criminals gingerly rubbed their red, raw wrists. I'll call Marcel for you, he said, pulled out his Beretta 9mm to showcase his power, simultaneously taking his phone out of his pocket. When Marcel answered after a few seconds, his subordinate spoke politely and professionally. Hey, Marcel, it's John. I just explained our predicament to Bill and Brian. The big guy wants you to tell him what's going on yourself for them to believe me. The moment the phone was in his hand, Brian demanded, Marcel, is this nigga telling the truth? He waited silently for a minute, listening to his boss's explanations. The huge killer responded with acceptance. All right, man. Yeah, you're right. I understand. I'll tell him. Of course. This guy needs to find his daughter. He passed John's cell phone back to him. He wants to talk to you again. The interrogator said, Hey, as he brought his phone up to his ear. Okay, he agreed. Yes. Bye. All right. So that is chapter 14 of my novel, The Cold Darkness of the Night. And I hope you all enjoyed that chapter and are looking forward to more. And as always, I'll post the links for the other chapters I've read so far on my channel and all the ones that I've published on my blog. And I've published a lot more on my blog than I have here on my channel. And also, as always, thank you so much for everyone who has subscribed to my channel and to everyone who's contributed to me on Patreon. And thank you so fucking much to anyone else who subscribed to my channel and to anyone who contributes to me on Patreon. I really fucking appreciate it. You have no idea how much it means to me. And as always, I love you all. Keep being the tiny beams of light that shine through the almost impenetrable darkness in the universe. And as always, most importantly, always remember this: the funk cures all. All right, everyone. Keep having mindgasms, and adios until next time.